Okay. Let's get our surfaces on. So once you're done with, again, make sure you save files, and I'll save this out for you guys separately. But in this case, we are working with the curved geometry, okay? So what I want you guys rendering is actually the curved geometry. Okay, and what I'm going to ask for is sort of one eye-level view of this. So this is where scale comes into play. So we'll give the scale of the object by putting people in it. Okay. So I've uploaded the people. Let's see if they're still there. I just can't remember which folder. Do you guys remember where I put the peeps? What's that? No. People Rhino. Week 9? I can spell people. Oh, and it's open the wrong version. So these are the people. Okay. So that's in week 9. I'll maybe move them. So, get some people in this thing. So let's go into people are very large. So there's the people. Now this is where you probably want to scale this thing, right? Rather than working on it in some... So right now we're in inches. I'm going to, yeah, let's just leave it in inches. Well, let's change it to feet. Actually. That. Again, it's always a good idea to change your perspective to parallel. Alright, so let's insert the people again. That looks correct now. We can, it's a block, so we go to block. Explode block, or you can just do explode. They all should be meshed together. Don't scale them. Right, so we have them positioned, so we want to set up a camera view. This is where you probably want to have your snaps off. That's when I switch it to parallel. We hit F6 or show camera. You can start adjusting this. We can also use the pan to sort of pan that, get a little bit off the ground. We can also change the focal angle. Let's start to get a view set up, okay? So again, I think in this case the people are critical, so we have an idea of scale. We can adjust how we're looking at this. We always have to grab the right camera point. That one is not the right camera point. It's always impossible to, like when you dolly it for some reason, to get it dollied back. Set that up again. I want to pick a different side. Okay. So to make this thing start to render, that it has some character to it, under rendering, again, I'm just using the basic Rhino render, but under render properties, there's the one thing that we want to turn on is skylight. Okay, this is without skylight on. Go to render, render properties, turn on skylight. This produces a similar effect to the ambient occlusion that we get in V-Ray. Okay. So that's going to be number one. The other thing is we can also introduce a background, but let's just see how this renders. We do need to set up the resolution to custom because we are doing something that's square. And I'm going to go low res for right now, just 1000 by 1000. This is low res. Yeah, we'll go over resolution in a minute. And then hit OK. And then we can render sort of that preview. It's looking for maps for the people. Just hit continue. So with the skylight on, it will produce, again, the sort of ambient occlusion, similar to that we were getting in V-Ray. And sorry guys, I know it looks really dark up there, but you can see it has this sort of soft shadows to it. Now I accidentally have the pattern on the surface, the floor surface, which is not necessary. So we probably want to keep that white. So if we go to render, material editor, we're using camel right now for that, but under here, unnamed, we can assign to selected. Make sure it's white. You say these do take a little bit longer to render. I mean, this is a slow machine, but. And again, it's like it's doing the same effect like what V-Ray does. But again, I think the scale figure is important. Now you can see it's rendering it. Maybe we're not getting enough sky, we're getting too much foreground, so it's not centered. It's no big deal if we put our own sky in, but one trick is just to make the height taller, so the proportions taller. So right now we're at 1,000 by 1,000. I can change the height so we can see how that's starting to look. So if we go to render properties, if I change my height to say 1500, see how it's rendering it taller now? So that way we can crop that at our own discretion. It's rendering more stuff, but of course there's really nothing there, so it's not causing it. Let's start looking at what options we have. So rendering, render properties. So for a background, we could do a gradient, which might be our best solution, and we can go to like a white. To maybe a real subtle color. So let's render that. This will add a little bit of ambient color as well, so the color actually gets transmitted into the actual object, so you get this bouncing of color as well. So this is no longer the top view. If we go to view, set view, name views, we can save this as cam 01 per se. And now this is actually saved. It's called cam 01. And what we're going to do now is add a light to this. So what you're going to be using is actually going to be a directional light. And this is going to be like where it wants to go from. So here, and it wants to go there. I've never got this to work where I can do it in this view. Well, maybe it's working now. So you can usually go into like another view and get the height. Because then it's easier to rotate it. Like say you want a certain position for it. So typically you sometimes want the daylight coming, you know, sort of with the camera, otherwise you're in shadow. And then we can see what this is going to do, and then we'll probably have to adjust the intensity. So after we render that, we click here on save, and I saved it as a targa. I'm going to open that up in Photoshop. Yeah, I think give me an alpha. I mean, a tip for a targa, doesn't matter. So now I can then crop it, yeah? So if I hold down the shift key, I want to have, this is where I might want to have a little bit more resolution, especially if I want to crop in tight. Okay, so this would be my one image 24 by 24. Image, adjust, brightness, contrast potentially, especially for what we're seeing on. Hold on. I'm at 8-bit. Probably don't want to go too bright or too much contrast, but okay, so this is one of your renders, yes? So the next thing what I want to do is create a cutaway. And a cutaway isometric, all right, so we can start to see into this a little bit better. So I would always do a save as, guys, and like save these files in a good location. So that way you have sort of one as a view, and now if we start cutting this thing and destroying it, you'd have another, yeah? Does that make sense? So what I'm going to do is set up a couple things. So I'm looking where I want to cut this thing, and I want to cut it typically through an opening. So the opening is where we're going to want to cut this guy. And I think we're going to do two cuts. We're going to sort of cut it once this way and maybe do like an apple slice. So it's not just down the middle, it's sort of like a piece taken out. So if I turn off my show camera, turn off the camera, I might just hide right now the people. And I'm going to take this whole piece. Under surface, there's plane. You'll find a cutting plane. This will just produce a plane that's like drawn based on like drawing from one point to another. So if I know this is the opening, I can draw a line like so, and it'll draw a plane that works with this object. Okay? Now you can see I just moved my camera by accident. Don't worry, if we wanted to go back to that camera, set view, we can just go to cam and it'll take us back. So if you're going to start manipulating a view, it might be best to go into another view. Alright, so if we do a, and again, maybe that's not the best spot, because you might say, well, you know, I'm sort of cutting this in a weird spot. So we can always go back to a top view. Set up another cutting plane. Maybe we're happy with that. Okay. And then I can use a split command. And then we need to select the objects we want to split. And then select the cutting object. This will split the object along that edge. So we have, now we can turn that off. Okay, so that's the split. And now say I want to cut this in another position to sort of, like I said, take the wedge. What I can do is create another cutting plane. Select everything. And then I can select, in this case, I don't want to split everything, I just want to split. So if I turn this, if I delete these or whatever, turn them off, I have the ability to take like a piece, which is that, and that, and hide it, and also that. That and that. So that becomes sort of my cutaway. Okay. And then what we're going to do, we're going to attempt maybe to use an existing sort of north, you know, in this case I'm using a northeast isometric. And we're basically rendering this as an isometric. Cutting away that part, okay? Sorry, I hit show. Let me go back to shaded. And again, this is where you might save it as a different file, because I might just be deleting those. And maybe we want to take away that instead. So depending on how you want to, you know, sort of dissect this thing. Okay. Now the difference here, what I want to do is I sort of want to look at two-sided materials, because I want the inside to read different than the outside. So we can read inside and outside. Okay. So if we were to just render this, sorry. And I have all my stuff on down there. So you'll get some crazy layers from the people. Yeah, I guess that's on. That's fine. Let's just render that. See how this starts to look. So if we go to that material, we're using that. I wonder if it's missing that map. No, there it is. I wonder where we have this. Well, let's see what other options we have. So these are all the old ones. If we go to new, yeah, I think we just might have to render this out separate. In V-Ray we can do it, but yeah, so I think for you guys it'll be easiest just to render it out twice. So what I mean by this is, if we look at our after you render this and save it, you would change the material and then re-render it, and then in Photoshop will put it together. Okay. So let's painfully. So we'll change the material, and we'll just make it white. And then re-render it. While that's rendering, we'll save this. So again, we're rendering this at high resolution as well, right? I'm doing this low res, so you can see how it, they're going to sit in the same spot. I can do a select all. I can do a. Yeah, it's funny with the Targa. Save them as TIFFs. With the Targa, it's more difficult. Edit, paste. And then come in here with my polygonal. Let me close Rhino. So I know this is where the opening was. I'm not doing a good job right now. I'm doing this fairly quick. So if I do a select inverse and then delete all my other stuff, you can see now we have sort of the inside and outside. Make it a little bit brighter for you guys. And then again, you're going to crop this to 24 by 24, okay? And then the last thing is maybe to sort of highlight the sort of edge where we cut. So we can take this selection. So I hold down the control key, it'll select that. If I go to path, I can say make work path and hit OK, and that makes it actually into a path. And then from there I can actually stroke the path with a brush even. So if I come to my brush, let's change a color here, and then let's go to my brush. We can set that brush, stroke path, brush, hit OK. So it makes that pattern. Now that's too big, obviously. So maybe that's better. And then I can say, so that's the actual path. Now that's actually, I should have made a new layer. Sorry, so let's do an undo. So I can do its own layer. So if we need to take away, because that's an opening there, right? And I think the other opening, I don't know if there is another opening that we're cutting through, but say that's the actual profile edge then that we're actually cutting through. So that reads as a cut. Okay. So this image and that image and your model. Okay. So again, make sure, I don't have the correct pixel here, so I don't have the correct size. If I were to try to print this, it would look like crazy blurry. So we want this to be minimum 200. So you see our pixel count is 4800. You can't just upsize. You can't just do that. Like if you do that, all you do is get a crisper blurriness. So you got to render it out at a high res, okay? Okay, so those are the two images, and then the model, cut, assembled. Again, Setup times are Thursday, Friday, and Monday for cutting. I will be there Thursday. I'll be there Friday, in and out, Thursday, in and out. Monday is going to be a tougher day for me to be there, so you have to come there prepared, knowing what to do. John will help you at a limited fashion, okay? So you need to know how to get the material, put the material down, screw it down, get your file set up, load it on the CNC, get the Sharpie, make sure that's working. John will help a little bit, but very less, okay? You guys have to come in fully prepared. Basically, if you don't come in fully prepared, John will send you away, because he's like, you haven't done your work, okay? So do not show up like with some, you know, your 3D file going, I don't know, I don't unfold it, or, you know, too late. All right? So, yes. Yes, yes. I wish I can find good internet somewhere on campus. I need to hook up like with a T1 or something, like directly in.